So a very warm welcome to this Retrofit Academy Summit. This is the third of our 4 Retrofit Summits this year. And this event takes a bit of a different direction. We've wanted to refresh the way in which we go about these events. In the past, they've been very full of PAS, very full of PAS 2035 and sort of the emergence of the energy efficiency sector around those standards and helping the industry get to grips with them. So we sort of feel we've almost done that to death. And also we have our monthly PAS Club, which for those of you who are Retrofit Academy members, and I do recognise many of their names here as people that we see in those. So we sort of still have that well covered off there. Not saying it won't re-emerge in the future, but what we want to do really is to work with you as a sector. Those of you who are forging your way in terms of building businesses in this sector or looking to create new jobs or indeed looking for new career opportunities yourselves. So we've trained at the Retrofit Academy well over 2,000 people over the last few years. And we know that many people have gone on to sort of big and better things, which is fantastic. It's the outcome we want to see. But there's an awful long way to go. Now, the Retrofit Academy's mission is to support the development of 200,000 competent retrofitters by the end of this decade. It's a deliberately big and bold mission. It's almost doubled the entire workforce currently employed in the repairs and maintenance and improvement sector. And of course, should that come to pass, this will make retrofit one of, if not the fastest growing sectors in the whole economy. And if we get there, we really will have an industrial green revolution. And of course, we expect that to be made up of around about 50,000 what we might call white collar roles around the roles of retrofit coordinator, assessor, designer, advisor, and evaluator. And then around about 150,000 of tradespeople working across the insulation, ventilation, services, and renewables roles. And there's some big questions, I think, around where that workforce is going to come from. Who are they? How do we engage them? How do we talk to them about retrofit? Who will they work for? And what sorts of new businesses may emerge to shape that future workforce? And they're really, really important questions that we don't know the answer to yet. But today, we're going to focus on the here and now, particularly around how the retrofit professions are evolving today. So as I say, we've enrolled over 2,000 people onto our course over the last few years, and others, of course, have been training people like retrofit assessors. So the questions are, so what do these people do? What have they gone on to do? Are their qualifications unlocking doors that have previously been closed to them? Are new businesses being created? And if so, how are those businesses doing? Are there examples to follow? And joining me today to delve deeper into those issues are a really good panel of speakers who all come from the front line of retrofit. So a very warm welcome to that panel. Now, there's one common theme between all these panelists, and that is that they run companies or involved in running companies that are all trying to recruit the best people in the sector at the minute, the best retrofit assessors, the best retrofit coordinators. So if any of you are sitting there and you've got your qualifications and you know you're really good at what you do, but you haven't found the career opportunity, well, here are a small number of people who would be really keen to talk to you. We get approached about 50 times a week by organizations saying they want to find the best retrofit coordinators, and we do what we can to make connections. So today we're going to hear from Peter Daly, regional stakeholder manager from Warmworks. They're a managing contractor working in partnership with the Greater Southeast Net Zero Hub to deliver retrofit projects in the Southeast. We're also going to hear from Chris Antrobus and from Jeff Lister from an energy efficiency business called Improve Easy, who've scaled up its services and its service offering around PAS 2035 and wants to grow that workforce. And then we're going to hear from 2 entrepreneurs, I suppose, two people who've set up businesses to deliver very specific services. Firstly, from Matt Radcliffe, the Managing Director of Osmosis ACD, a retrofit coordination and assessment business servicing social landlords and local authority retrofit nationwide. That was a business launched last year, and we're going to hear all about that. And then last but by no means least, we're going to hear from Rebecca Lane, the Chief Executive of Furb now. And Rebecca is an entrepreneur who needs retrofit coordinators to help her scale up her exciting new service in the able to pay sector. So welcome all. And as it says on screen, we're going to start then by looking at the southeast of England, where the Net Zero hub down there cites a lack of supply chain capacity as the primary reason for slower than hoped for progress on decarbonisation. It is, of course, a region incorporating 22 million people, and I believe around 9 million homes, but also where finding a decent builder at the best of times is already often a challenge. So welcome, Peter. I would now invite you to come and tell us all about your work.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, as I say, I'm Peter Daly. I'm an engagement officer at Warmworks, and my role is overwhelmingly to engage with local authorities, community groups, training providers, and others that either want to use our services or want to come and talk to us about joining in with our services. So I'm a bit of an ambassador for Warmworks in essence. So that's me. I've been working for Warmworks in the Southeast for the last year, or a little over a year in the Southeast, when we picked up the contract to deliver LAD 2 throughout the greater Southeast. Well, we originally started to deliver we were contracted to deliver in 4 of the regions, but we ended up being asked to deliver across the whole of the greater Southeast as a managing agent. Next slide, if you don't mind. So who are Warmworks? Warmworks are a joint venture, and we're owned by 3 separate organisations, all have equal shares in the business. So the first is the Energy Savings Trust, and I'm pretty confident most of you would have come across the Energy Savings Trust at some time in your career, providing free and impartial advice to homeowners around all areas of energy efficiency, whether that's domestic, transport, etc., etc. And then there's Changeworks, who are a charity based up in Scotland, similar to National Energy Action in England and Wales. And so they're a charity that owns a third of us, and they're focused on relieving fuel poverty and increasing energy efficiency throughout Scotland. And the third is Everwarm, who are part of the SureServe group, and they're one of the major retrofit installers in the UK at the moment. So Warmworks Scotland was set up a few years back, and now they have been to almost every single part of Scotland, delivered over 27,000 households. And when this presentation was written, we estimated that we were saving people an average of £300 a year, and that was written before the first fuel price rises. So now we could probably say those people may be saving, compared to where they would have been, probably at least double that. So the retrofit works that have been done under Warmworks in Scotland, and then since in the last year in the UK, are making significant changes and improvements to people's lives. Overwhelmingly, Warmworks tends to work with lower income and vulnerable households. So we tend to manage projects such as LAD and others that target vulnerable groups in our society. Next, please. So talking about the supply chain and our track record of employment and trying to help build capacity in the energy efficiency industry. As you can see, we've created several apprenticeship opportunities, hundreds of new jobs in the Southeast, as we were talking about just then. One of the real challenges is when we went to deliver LAD 2, a few of the problems that arose. One was it started quite late, and LAD 1 was still continuing at the same time. But number 2 was there just isn't the capacity to deliver to the scale that was asked. We managed to build quite a large machine and bring on board dozens of installers, but there still wasn't the capacity to deliver it anywhere near the scale that the funding that was available required. Anyway, gone off piste a little bit there. So we've created thousands of training opportunities. When we work hard to ensure that we deliver the living wage, and our supply chain has to sign up to delivering on that commitment. We've just won our second Investors in People Platinum Award. We won the first one at our first attempt, which apparently is almost unheard of, and we've just in the last month been assessed and been given the Platinum Award yet again. And our chief exec has been nominated as an Investors in People leader. So he's been put forward for the Best Leader Award. And we've also been shortlisted for a Living Wage Award 3 years running. And we also support the Trussell Trust as one of the charities that we like to kind of point at when we're doing any kind of charitable works. So over our years, we've kind of built quite a good bond with the Trussell Trust, as we think that kind of reflects a little bit of what we're trying to do. Next, please. So what we're doing now is we started in Scotland, and we're pretty strong in Scotland, but we've been developing the business down in the southeast. As I said, we've been delivering LAD 2. We started from zero last August to the point where we've now built a contact center. We have retrofit assessors, retrofit coordinators, installer coordinators, and we are managing quite a large supply chain. What we found, what we had found was we looked to employ retrofit assessors, but we found that the vast majority of retrofit assessors that we came up that we found wanted to be self-employed. So we started off with an idea that we were going to employ retrofit assessors and manage them and direct them as we saw fit. But in the end, we ended up with a subcontracted model. We still have some retrofit assessors. We would still look to employ retrofit assessors in the future. But at the moment, the model that seems to be working, and the model that fits the retrofit assessors and has supported our delivery in the southeast, has been a subcontracted model, to the point where for about the last 5 months, we've been doing over 300 retrofit assessments a week, making 300 retrofit appointments for assessments a week with a subcontractor model. We've started to use Qbot down in the southeast. We have recently acquired a company called Connected Response that has is an intelligent management system of electric storage heaters, electric water systems, etc., to actually release people from kind of economy 7. So we're really kind of committed to trying to improve the lot of the vulnerable across the UK, and building our business and bringing on board some of the best people, but finding ways in which we can work with people that fit their needs and the needs of our business. Can I have the next slide, please? Hello?
Yeah, we're seeing that next slide.
All right. Yeah, so we've been working on the Greater Southeast LAD scheme. We've been working with it was called the Southeast Energy Hub. It's now called the Net Zero Hub, which consists of 11 local enterprise partnerships, which comprise almost the whole of the local authorities in the southeast. So having delivered LAD 2, we're also involved now with the hub to deliver the Sustainable Warmth Programme with the heating upgrade grants and LAD 3. And we've just recently been told that that'll probably roll over for at least another couple of years. We are also looking at working with some local authorities who didn't manage to get their housing stock complete in the timescales that are available in LAD 2 to work with them to utilise the the decarbonisation fund in order to build some projects with them. So we've got quite a bit of work that we're looking at across the southeast. We've also now won a contract to deliver LAD in Newcastle, and we are looking at some other projects in London and around the outskirts of London. Next, please. A little bit about us now, I think. Our approach to delivery is based on our culture and our values. A lot of companies talk about their values and talk about the culture. I think the one thing that really surprised me when I joined Warmworks was how much the culture and the values were truly embedded within the organization, and how much of a, it sounds a bit woolly, how much of a family kind of environment we work to try and make it. When I joined, there was only a few of us in London, and the main office that they'd been used to using was in Scotland. It was incredible how many people wanted to help us build, how many people provided time and energy to make sure that we got off the ground as quickly as we could, and we were able to be successful. Within a year, we in the southeast, starting from a standing start, are delivering more retrofit improvements, delivering to more properties on a monthly basis than we are in Scotland, despite the fact that Scotland has been going for a number of years and we've only been going for a little while in the southeast. And that is just testament to the support we got from the team that already existed, already had an idea how the systems worked. So you can see the words there and you can read them for yourself, but we do try to take ownership. Each one of us is given autonomy and the authority to take ownership of any situation we come up against, and we're encouraged to see those through to the end. So it's not a question of coming across something and handing it over to somebody else. Most of us, myself included, are really enthusiastic about what we do. What's not to like about spending other people's money to make vulnerable people better off? You can come to work every day and go away feeling that you've tried to make a difference, and in most instances you have made a difference, and where things haven't gone exactly as you might have liked, you've gone out of your way to put them right and put them and make that customer as happy and contented with the work as they could be, and all the time knowing that you've also done your piece around trying to save our environment. So I kind of get a buzz out of it, but then I've always been enthusiastic about it. I've been in energy efficiency for 20 odd years now, and I've always found it interesting. The innovation bit, as I said, we've kind of introduced Qbot up in Scotland, and we brought it down south, and connected response is another thing that we've brought on board. We're using AirX in order to have smart ventilation. So we're always looking for innovative solutions that we can add and support the supply chain in delivering, and also in the way in which we work, and ensuring that we kind of find agile ways to identify our clients and deliver to them. And I think that agility showed in the fact that we were committed when we started off to having our own full pack of retrofit assessors that were onboarded and uniformed up and belonging to us, so to speak, but then found that it was more agile and more effective, and it was more what what the retrofit assessors wanted was more to have the lifestyle that they wanted and to supply us with the hours that they wanted to work. So then we had to find a way to make that happen. And again, we kind of really work hard not to work in silos. So everybody tries to have an idea of what's going on across the piece. So we all talk very regularly. Unfortunately, a lot of it's on Teams. I'm a person who loves to get in front of people and meet people, but I think we're still not as open as a society as we used to be. Our teams do tend to have a mixed working environment of between the office. We've got an office in Caledonian Road. So we have people who work there a few days a week and then work from home a few days a week. So most of us have a kind of mixed work pattern. And the last bit on there is about the care. We do tend to inspect all of our work that's done for us by our installers, and we are pretty hot on safety and customer care. We carry out a customer survey for every job that we've done, and we make sure that the customer's happy before the supply chain get paid. We do pay the supply chain very, very quickly, and our audits show that most of the supply chain is paid. 97% of the supply chain, I think it is paid within 30 days. But we also look to make sure that the customers are content before we make sure all payments are paid. So we do have a focus on satisfying our customers and our audience. I think I'm now almost on my final slide. Am I not? And here we are. Is that like I've only put this up because I'm in it, so there. But this is just a little bit about us. It's only about a minute. So if you could start that video.
We're not getting the sound there, I'm afraid. Good job, the subtitles, though. We'll just let it go with the subtitles if that's okay. We caught you there, Peter. Don't worry. There we go. Okay, my apologies for that, Peter. I can see frantic activity outside my office trying to sort that out, but unfortunately it's not going to be in time for that.
That's fine. Thank you. That's me in a nutshell. That's us.
Thank you. And it's really fascinating. You know, I've worked in and around construction for I lose track, I don't know, 17 years now. And whilst we're waiting for questions to come in, I'd provide a chat, or if people want to just put their hand up, they're welcome to. There's a couple that have come in. I just want to pose the question. You've come in to tackle a big problem there in the southeast. You know, let's say 22 million people, 9 million homes. Lord only knows how many people living in fuel poverty, but hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and I'm sure now it's millions. You know, how have you gone about trying to pull together that supply chain and workforce from scratch?
I think there's been a few ways. There's one, lots of us who have been in the industry for a while know people have been in the industry, and so therefore put out feelers, use LinkedIn, used word of mouth to try to engage and find people that we like. But secondly, like that's for people for us to employ directly.
Yeah.
But secondly, we've tried to look where we haven't looked before to bring people who are different to what we're used to. If you keep doing the same things, you keep getting the same results. So
Yeah.
we have found that we've got a lot of the people who we've brought in, customer advisors, for example. I know 2 or 3 of them that we bought from the insurance industry who wanted to come and feel that they were working in a customer advice setup where they actually felt that they were doing good, they were providing something that people wanted. I'm not saying that people in insurance don't, but they say it's a different environment. Although there can still be the stress, and though there can still be customers that are fraught, it is different feeling that you are doing something that you feel adds value.
Okay.
In the supply chain, that has been a very difficult one. We've just gone out, we've used all the feelers, we've worked with local authorities and others, and the challenge there just is that there's more work than there is people to do the work at the moment.
Okay. And have you quantified that? Do you have a sense of how many people we're short and perhaps in what roles? Because you do have this pan-regional role, don't you?
Yes, I think because we've only been going for a year and we built the machine, and to be honest, we only actually started the allocations and putting the work out, the actual retrofit works out towards when was it, last October, November?
Yeah.
So what we tried to do was we tried to test the supply chain we had lots of suppliers who told us they could deliver all measures everywhere. Quite often what happens with suppliers is they overpromise what they can do, or they'll tell you they'll deliver in all areas because they think that's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
So the only way we got to find out what the capacity was by pushing work out until it wasn't getting done, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You just keep feeding the supply chain until the delivery slows down, and then you get a feeling for what the capacity was.
Okay.
And it is very complex because there's so many measures and so much to do. But we felt that where we reached capacity in the southeast, or it felt like we couldn't push any further with the chain we had, when we reached about £5-6 million a month. It's
Right.
hit a buffer zone.
Okay.
And that's just us. Obviously, there's other work going around, there's other people doing things. But for us, it was around about £5-6 million a month.
Yeah.
Seemed to be coming up against resistance where we'd need to increase that supply chain even further.
Okay, I could ask more, but I mustn't hog the microphone. So, gentleman called Ian Hurst has said you've mentioned a subcontractor model for retrofit assessors, and he wonders what's your approach to retrofit coordinators and whether you have these people in-house.
No, we have a contract with a supplier that does most of our retrofit coordination at scale. But we still have a number of retrofit. We still need that expertise on board, and we still occasionally are looking for more retrofit coordinators, because although we do it at scale, we still have to know internally what it looks like, and there's always the bits that the gaps that you have to fill. So at the minute, we're not employing large numbers, but we do offer opportunities to retrofit coordinators.
Okay, fine. And are you happy for people to get in touch with you if they're interested in that? There'll be a lot of coordinators.
Yeah.
Okay.
We won't have, I don't want to disappoint them, but because there won't be that many roles. But yeah, if people want to talk to me,
your website presumably advertises the roles as they come up. Okay,
yes,
that's fine. Thank you. Nick Owens asks if you consider yourselves doing whole house retrofits.
We have to. PAS 2035 means that we've got to go, and once you've done the retrofit assessment and you get the whole house plan, that's what we have to do, which is why I think a lot of in the past, a lot of installers have their own retrofit coordinators and assessors. We have it separately because not all installers do all measures. So we have an independent assessment, we have independent whole house plans developed and retrofit coordination, and then we put that back out to the supply chain.
Okay, fantastic. And then a couple of people have asked whether you plan to be active or intend to be active in other parts of the country, such as the West Midlands and the Northwest. I imagine you're pretty busy with the
We
Southeast and Scotland. But...
we are pretty busy, but we are really ambitious, and yes, we are looking. We are always looking to do more work all over the place, and I suppose like Pink in the Brain, we're looking to take over the world.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fantastic. Good luck. Are there any final questions? Yeah, and the East Midlands too. Yeah, sure. Well, I'm sure sure they'll take over the whole world and the East Midlands. Any final questions? Otherwise, we get another opportunity, hopefully, at the end with a panel discussion. So,
I
Peter,
can see somebody's hand up.
oh,
Sabine?
can you? I can't.
I can see a Sabine Mary, is it?
Okay, Sabine, if you'd like to ask your question. We can't hear you, I'm afraid.
Sorry. As my little image says, basically it says refurbished, don't demolish. But I live on an estate that's facing demolition, and obviously as demolition becomes more unpopular and probably less environmentally acceptable, the alternative is to retrofit. Now, would your organisation be one that's worth at least having a conversation with? I don't mean necessarily to do it, but you seem very knowledgeable in the area. So I'd be happy to chat at a later date just to get my feelers as to what you may think would be a good way forward. But
you could. I'd be happy if you dropped me a line, and then maybe you and I could have a chat about it and find out a little bit more about the project. And yeah, if not for us, maybe provide you some advice where to go. More than happy. Just have a chat if you want.
That's fine. Thank you very much. So there's also lots of information on our website, which you might find useful. I'm going to move us on, but we'll come back. Some of the questions that have just come through, I know we're going to be relevant to future conversations. So thank you very much for now, Peter. Well, we're going to move on now to Chris and Jeff from Improve Easy, who are a growing energy efficiency business, and they're going to talk to us about the services that they provide and the opportunities as they see it for people in the sector moving forward. So Jeff and Chris, over to you. I can see you, Jeff.
Hi, yeah, well,
okay.
It's Chris that's taking the lead. So I work for Improve Easy as a retrofit coordinator. So I'm in a supportive capacity at the Q&A session.
Sure. Here's Chris now.
Sorry, guys.
No problem.
Afternoon. Thanks, David. Yeah, afternoon all. So yeah, my name's Chris Anschbus. I'm the managing director of two of the businesses at Improve Easy. In fact, Emily, if you wouldn't mind just going on to the next slide. Yeah, so Improve Easy, we're an energy efficiency business that, in fact, it's our 12th birthday next week, I believe. So we've been in the industry a number of years now, and I guess kind of going back in time, it was always geared around the government energy efficiency funded schemes. That's where we started many years ago in a very small office in Manchester. And since then, we've been on a kind of mission, really, growing and evolving over the years. And we've recently actually just completed on an MBO, management buyout, in order to further grow and invest in the future of the company. So I'm managing director of two of the businesses. The one's actually on this slide, which has got the kind of red dots around that. So it's Improve Easy Eco Limited, which is the energy company obligation. And then Improve Easy Services Limited, which is where our retrofit services now sit. So, I mean, that in itself shows really the growth and importance of that delivery. We never used to have a separate limited company purely for the retrofit assessment and coordination. And as part of our strategy going forward and our firm belief that the demand is going to be significant imminently and certainly in the future, that's kind of what led us to separate and give it its own business, really. So we've got Improve Easy Eco Limited, which is where we get government funding for the Eco 4 scheme, as it is now, supporting reduction of carbon emissions and supporting those most in need. And we work with all of the big, well, 5 utility companies on that scheme. We also work with some of the challenges as well. So that's kind of our bread and butter really in the business. And we kind of operate as a managing agent predominantly. That's been what we've done. That's been our business model in the past, whereby we will outsource the actual installation. We've then evolved to add an installs business to our group. So that's Improve Easy Installs. And that's a relatively new business that we're really focusing on. We're in the process actually of acquiring an established installation business. And again, that's to really complement our eco delivery, but also it's going to be critical in the other areas that we want to kind of deliver in the future, which I'll touch on shortly. We've then got Improve Easy Services, which is where Jeff sits, and everybody on this call is probably going to be most interested in, and that's where our retrofit assessors sit, our retrofit coordination team. We've got a quality assurance team, and that's where all that technical expertise sits in the business. And then Improve Easy GCS, which is really our central services, and also our sales and customer service teams really are there. And then finally, just to touch on Improve Easy CBF, we've also got, we're FCA accredited. We've got a finance, consumer business finance department, again, financing any real energy efficiency measures in the able to pay market. So all 5 businesses are all geared around exactly the same thing. And if you just go on to the next slide, please, Emily. And that is really our mantra. Is what we're all about is to reduce carbon emissions by improving the energy efficiency of buildings. So all 5 of those companies are key enablers for us to achieve that. Next slide, please. Great. So I won't go through all of this, and it's a bit of a build on the first structure slide, really. But and the 2 kind of, these are the 5 core businesses that I just touched on. The 2 with the stars on are the ones that I look after. And I think that there's, never been more of a need really for everything that these businesses deliver and will deliver in the future. The eco government funding is growing. We've gone from 640 million estimated spend per year in Eco 3 over a 3.5-year scheme. And as most of us know, we're all in amongst Eco 4 now, which is £1 billion per year. So much more investment in that area, which is fantastic. And then also, in my view, having been in energy efficiency for a number of years, and previously, before my role in Improve Easy, I was head of eco for British Gas. It's kind of requires much more controls, much more governance around how these installations and energy efficiency measures are being installed, and that's where the retrofit services business is absolutely critical to everything that we do. Next slide, please. And then this is kind of stating the obvious, really, but one thing that I know for sure is that there is a huge demand for retrofit assessors and coordinators. We went quite early when back in 2019, I think it was, and the PAS requirements required us to follow the retrofit assessor and coordinator route. And I think, in fact, we were the first, or one of the first companies to get the guys through the retrofit assessment and coordination training, because we knew that it was a very important part of our business, and there was going to be a high demand in the future. So we've had a fairly significant investment in that early on, and it feels really as if we're now kind of just getting across it all, if I'm honest. It's been a bit of a journey this past 2.5 years, and I'm sure Jeff can share his views shortly, but we're now in a position where I think we've got a very experienced retrofit team. The demand is very clear to me that lots of people want to use those services, and that will ultimately lead to us growing that business unit over the coming months and years. And I guess if you go on to the next slide, please, Emily. These are, you might have to just go again. I didn't realise whoever's, sorry, done this. I didn't realise somebody had done that. So there's just kind of 4 real key areas that our business, I guess, is tapping into at the moment. And most of you on the call may be aware of the energy company obligation. That's we're kind of firmly in that Eco4 delivery now. It's been a very slow and difficult start, but we're kind of getting there now, I think. And it's great that that's a 4-year scheme and there's significant funding available. And I think that some of the kind of learns that we're going through at the moment, and I think the industry as well, is it's quite a significant change, not only the reliance on the retrofit assessment and coordination support and other technical support that is required and constant learning in those areas. It's also that kind of huge shift really from the bread and butter boiler swap out and underfloor insulation to kind of funky, sexier energy efficiency measures now, like air source heat pumps and everything solar, and all of that kind of work that needs to be completed to meet these schemes. But you know, just looking at those numbers, it's a huge amount of investment and a huge opportunity for businesses like ourselves to kind of secure as much of that funding as we can, and reinvest that in the business to continue to grow. So that's kind of one, the Eco4, and then there's Eco Plus, which there's certainly the kind of rumbles are getting louder with Eco Plus. So the main difference being it's a smaller budget, it's £1 billion spend, and that's targeting the able to pay market, but it subsidises some of these more expensive measures. So both of those schemes, huge investment, hugely important, especially given the state of the world at the moment. And I guess all of those start with retrofit assessment and retrofit coordinators. So none of that can be achieved without the retrofit assessors and coordinators. So they couldn't be any more important at the moment. Next slide, please, Emily. Great. So this is actually just to remind me to mention the LAD, the local authority delivery schemes, and HUG, the home improvement grant, home upgrade grant. Sorry, they're also areas that we're kind of beginning to get heavily involved in now. We've got a number of contracts with Cheshire East. We've also got some with a contract with Council up in Cumbria that we've recently secured. And that's quite a new kind of work stream for our business, really. But it's us diversifying out of the normal kind of eco-funded route. But it also shows that, or it's taught us, I guess, that there's a huge demand for that. And I think just from the local authority delivery schemes and the HUG schemes, I believe that £1.5 billion additional funding has been announced this week. So again, it's just much more commitment, I guess, to make these schemes work and to reduce carbon emissions and customer bills. Next slide, please. Great. And then MEES is the minimum energy efficiency standards. And this is something that we are in quite advanced discussions with a number of financial institutes. And this is all about improving the standards of rental properties across the United Kingdom. So it affects all private landlords across the UK. All of those privately rented properties need to become an EPC C or better by 2026, or the landlords could face fines or be unable to rent the property. So this is a huge task, and I was trying to get some numbers on this, which I failed to do, sadly, because I didn't have much notice for this session. However, I do know there's a huge demand in this area, and this is something that I don't think has been tackled with any gusto in the past, and is now very seriously being taken. It's been taken very seriously, and I think also the financial institutes are going to be having a lot of pressure put on them to make sure that this is completed, and of course they've got other financial interests in terms of making this work, so that landlords don't sell their properties and they maintain their mortgage portfolios. So that's something that's actually being headed up by our CEO. That's something that he's kind of heading up at the moment, and like I say, I think that's going to be a huge demand on retrofit assessors and coordinators. Next slide, please. Great, and this was a bit of a kind of telling you what you kind of know, but all of these schemes are nationwide coverage, really. So this is an area where I know that we sometimes get some challenges in terms of trying to get retrofit source assessors and retrofit coordinators to certain parts of the UK for any of those 4 work streams that I've just talked about. So it's kind of, if there are any retrofit coordinators or assessors out there that would like to discuss joining Improvisa, then please give me a shout or get in touch with Jeff, and we'll certainly be keen to talk to you guys.
Okay.
Next slide. I think this is the last slide, actually. I think you might have to just press through that, Emily. I've grabbed this from a deck we went through not long ago. So yeah, this is basically just me selling the business, I suppose. So we've come a long way recently. We've been growing kind of probably 40% year on year since I joined 3 years ago. We've been fast track 100 winners 2 years in a row. Would have been year 3 had the Sunday Times lot stopped fast track 100, and then we've also been shortlisted in the Financial Times top 1,000 European fastest growing privately owned companies 2 years in a row as well. So not only do I think we know what we're doing, we're a pretty good business to get in bed with, so to speak, and do business with. Very trustworthy, very good reputation, and in a great period now of growth for us, following the management buyout and investment that we've got to really dig into these other areas that are new to us, such as the MEES and the lab and hub schemes. So that's what I was going to cover off. I hope some of that at least was useful for you guys.
Absolutely.
Jeff has come along to, Jeff is the retrofit coordinator expert for our business. That's certainly not me. So any technical questions can go to Jeff, and I'll try my best to answer any of the questions.
Oh, I've got a whole set of technical questions for you.
Oh, wow.
Excellent.
I'll see what I can do.
No, well, I'm sure there will be some, given that we've got probably 100 retrofit coordinators on the call. But
yeah.
Firstly, I am waging a career-long battle, trying to persuade people that there is no hyphen in the word coordinator, and I say this as one of 3 people who claim ownership of the term retrofit coordinator in the first place. But I'll let you off, because it is the Oxford English Dictionary says you can do it either way, so you're okay.
Right. I'm really
there's clearly a shortage of retrofit coordinators and retrofit assessors, hence you're keen to find more.
Yeah.
Are you finding this is driving up prices, whether you bring in freelancers or salaries, if you bring people in as employees?
I'm glad you've asked that with Jeff on the line, David. Thanks for that. It definitely, joking aside,
I'll be asking for a raise at the end.
I know, yeah. I think the challenge that we've had and still have is finding, same old challenge for any business really, is finding good people, good retrofit coordinators and good retrofit assessors that want to do the job properly. That's critical to us, because there's so much risk as we know, as everybody or any businesses on here that do similar thing to us will know, there's an awful lot of risk attached if you get something wrong, especially now in certainly for Eco4, where average jobs have gone up from maybe £3,000 value in Eco3 to 20, 30, 40,000 pounds. So I think it's more about getting the right people for our business, but then without a shadow of a doubt, it's very competitive. And what we tend to find, we like to, where possible, recruit people actually, on a cards-in basis, so they're Improve Easy staff, whereas a lot prefer to be, from our experience anyway, self-employed. So that's more of a challenge. But we've only actually got 3 retrofit coordinators ourselves at the moment. We've got a number of retrofit assessors, but when we've got freelance network that we lean on. And right now here today, with a lot of the work streams that I've talked through being relatively new in terms of MEES and the LAD and hub schemes, Eco, that's our bread and butter, so we know what we're doing there. It's a new scheme which is slower. We're in quite a comfortable place. That said, it's definitely a concern of mine, because I know full well that that's an area that we need to grow. And if I had a kind of a raft of retrofit coordinators that wanted to join, then we'd certainly take that very seriously.
Right. Yes, it's interesting. We've had comments in the chat earlier on from retrofit coordinators, some of whom I know are very good at what they do, saying that they're finding the market slow for their services, and it's hard to marry that up with what yourself and Peter have just described. So what do you think the gap is?
I think at the moment it's everyone finding the feet with Eco4. It's just been a massive change. I know from when I was dealing with Eco3. We're dealing mainly with sort of boiler upgrades, storage heater upgrades, the odd insulation measure, and it's been a complete change around to installers and companies taking the whole house approach. Okay. And it's a massive change, and I think it'll take a little while for people to find the feet. We're kind of getting there now.
Okay,
but I would say that explains the shortage in demand in the short term.
Okay, so what you're saying is increasingly we're moving to fabric first, whole house retrofit.
Yeah, and it's a big change for everybody involved. It is.
Okay, fine. Okay, fantastic. So there's been some comments come through in the chat, but I'm not seeing specific questions. I don't think that I can put here. So I'm going to ask for any hands up. Questions for Chris? I'm not seeing. Are you seeing any hands, Emily? I can't see everybody, I'm afraid.
I'm not seeing any hands, but we have had some quite specific questions in the chat. If you'd like me to read them out.
Yeah, I'm not, the sort of the appropriate ones.
Well, I was thinking that actually, because some are very, very detailed, and I'm assuming towards yourself and those experienced in the room there, Jeff, with retrofit. So, for example, thermal imaging assessments conducted by assessors who are qualified, which should be requested by coordinators. Will this play a bigger part in retrofit in terms of identifying initial heat loss, as well as ensuring the works have been completed to meet the required standards? That's from Samir there. I think that's quite a specific one.
Might be one for Jeff.
It is, and it's not something we're seeing at the moment. It's not something that will form part of your standard retrofit assessment. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that could play a part. It's a more sort of detailed survey, but how practical that is and cost effective that is, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But a more general question, if you don't mind. Would you say that the PAS standards, PAS 2035 standard, is helping or hindering your business at the moment?
A bit of both.
Okay.
Whether our primary, well, mine as a coordinator, my primary interest is the clients, ensuring that they're receiving quality, good quality work, and we want installers that are happy to do that. So it's getting them used to that standard of work. So for some it may be a hindrance. Maybe they want to cut corners here and there, but yeah, I think we'll all get there. It's a standard that we all want to achieve.
Okay, but would you say it was an advantage? I do recall actually the yourself and a few of us coming on board with Retrofit Coordinator training very early, as Chris said. So have you found that an advantage in your business that you brought those skills and knowledge in early?
I think we have. I was going to. It's a good question. That I think definitely that's paid off for us. I think it's still, if I'm being brutally honest, and
no, don't be too brutal, please.
I think it's been a painful journey, David. If I'm honest, I think it really has, and I think there's been an awful lot of learning. There was a kind of, when we went early, it felt as if it was more of a controlled deployment, and then, in my view, it felt as if it was very rapid. There was a lot of pressure for it to rapidly grow and rapidly deliver. And if I think, another answer to that question, I entirely agree with Jeff's view. It's about doing things right, and that's at the forefront of my mind. And that's coming from a former commercial director that, really kind of my focus was on the numbers, and now it's the broad business and much more than that. But I think some of the challenges that certainly we faced on the back of the changes, and still face now, really, is it slows business, it slows things down, but we're fully behind. It's needed, it's necessary, and certainly for eco, it's just a necessary evil at times.
Okay, thank you very much for that very honest answer. Hazel Mealy, hello Hazel. You've asked a question here around how either Warmworks or Improve Easy are mentoring and supporting inexperienced people or new people coming into the business who may have the theory but less on-site experience. So do you have an approach to that?
It's very difficult, that. So we do, the guys, anybody that we've got a relationship with that requires support. So, we'd obviously have to know whoever it is that needs the support has got an open line to us, and that's one thing that we kind of pride ourselves on. We will be very supportive and collaborate to try and grow the expertise in the industry. The challenge, which is a very recent challenge for us that I've been trying to address this week, in fact, is that there's an awful lot of support that's required out there. And we've got a relatively small team. We've got an awful lot of technical support, but a relatively small team. So what we at times run the risk of is supporting and not doing the doing. So it comes back to the supply and demand, really. My simple view of retrofit assessment and coordination is that the demand is already outgrowing the supply. It's as simple as that. So it's an area that, like I said earlier, is frequently on my mind.
Okay, that's great. That's fine. Goal, I believe you have your hand up. I can't see it, but if you do, could you unmute yourself? And this will be our final question for Chris and Jeff.
Sure. Hi, question for Jeff. How are you dealing with? Hi, Jeff. How are you dealing with lack of retrofit designers, especially under Eco 4 when we are looking at whole house retrofit that falls under risk part C?
I'm going to struggle with that question because at present we don't deal with Path C jobs. They just, the qualifications that you need to have to deal with those, we don't have in-house. Possibly something we'll look at down the line. But yeah, I mean, the level of qualifications you have to do those designs and work as a coordinator is something we just don't have at the moment.
Okay. Just to build on that, it's a really good question, actually, and Jeff's answered it perfectly. I think we almost had a Path C, and then it ended up not being a Path C, and we were kind of wiping our brow, really. But that's something that I guess, fortunately, at the moment, we don't come across at all, really. But it's definitely an area that needs kind of some attention.
I guess that's because most of your business is in the eco sector, is it, rather than the social housing programs or what have you?
It's very rare we'll come across a property that is actually a Path C. So it's the demand as well for those jobs. Obviously it requires a lot of training, qualifications.
Okay.
We don't come across many properties that are going down that path.
No, so that's an interesting sort of business aspect to this in itself. Well, thank you very much for that. I'm not sure if you can both stay with us. I think you probably have other things to go on to. Well, thanks so much for doing that and presenting such a positive impression of yourselves and your business, and good luck with everything moving forward.
Great.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. You're welcome. So we'll move on now to talk about the startup side of things. So we've heard from two fairly established installer management agents, contractors. We're now going to start looking at the specific startups, so businesses that would not have existed just a few years ago. And first off, we're going to hear from Matt Radcliffe, Managing Director of Osmosis ACD. I'll declare an interest here so that you can't accuse me of bias in the questions I ask. I am Matt's business partner in this, so I know all about this. Other retrofit coordinator services are available, but it's a fascinating story and a journey that Matt's been on. I think you'll all benefit from hearing about it. So, Matt, over to you.
Thank you very much, David. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Radcliffe. As David has introduced me as the Managing Director of Osmosis ACD. We are a genuine startup. So we officially registered in June of last year with a view to looking at past 2035. Obviously, it was always going to be our sole focus, really. And then we're looking at how to tackle the challenges that not only just face the industry and how past 2035 is integrating into all of the different funding streams, but also how to create a startup business out of that for good and for bad. And I suppose earlier I was introduced as an entrepreneur. It's always a little bit funny when people say that because I don't see myself as one. People tell me that I should, but I don't. But in my mind, I think because of the new emergence of past 2035, all of these different roles that have been created, I think we're all kind of entrepreneurs in our own little way. So we're all trying to do it together and deliver that great service that that the industry badly needs. So next slide, please, Emily. So I've not filled it with fancy pictures apart from the next slide, which isn't fancy, but it's a picture. But just to give you a brief background, to me, I suppose I've been in I'd say the insulation and energy efficiency sector for around 18 years, and I cut my teeth at Rockwool in the earliest part of that, and they really helped me give. The culture of Rockwool is particularly family focused. They are a family-run business. They're extremely technically led, and that's always stayed with me. And I've tried to pull that through in everything that I've tried to do. It's always based on teamwork and relying on that team. And we all have to support each other. And Rockwool really instilled that into me. Since Rockwool, we moved into kind of the energy efficiency funding world, which took into EEC, which was early days, and then CERT, all the ecos, and now obviously we're into different streams of funding, and I'll touch on that a little bit as to what Osmosis ACD delivers. We deliver all of the services. We're predominantly focusing on the assessment, advice, coordination, and evaluation processes. We do our own air tightness testing, but we also do touch on retrofit design. Really interested on from Improvisi around the difficulty of retrofit design. It is difficult. It's super challenging. So many boxes that need a yes in it from the process map that the TRA put out there, and finding those qualified people is difficult. We have in-house, we have a couple of people who are moving towards that retrofit designer role, but we also work with really experienced and specialist retrofit design outfits, and they have all of the right tickets to be able to do this, but it can often be quite pricey to do that, and so we've all got to be a little bit careful about what that output is. Clients have different expectations around what design actually is. I'm still not convinced design is the right word, because people do get hung up on that word, but it is a big part of our discussion within our team and with others outside and with clients. So it was interesting, their response and the questions as well. As David said, very kindly preempted this. We do have a management team with lots of experience. There's myself, there's David, and two other key members of the management team, being Kevin, who's our operations director, who's got huge amounts of experience in running operations at multiple different kinds of operations, but certainly for this one, accessing properties is always a challenge. And Carl, who's our senior retrofit coordinator, and I'll explain a little bit about Carl's role later on, because the word mentor was mentioned before, so I'd like to touch on that as well. Next slide, please, Emily. Right, here's my one picture, and this is pretty much how I've experienced retrofit in my time. So it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I think everybody might agree that it is a bit of a roller coaster, or it has been a roller coaster. I'm starting to see a little bit of steady, more of a steady ride now, but I'm sure that within there's a few emotions that we might all have felt along the way. And for those of us who've been in and around the sector, you know, to survive in this ever-changing retrofit landscape, you've got to be resilient, you've got to be confident, and dare I say it, just a little bit bonkers, because we've seen years of highs and lows of funding coming out, funding taken away, £1 million of investment, and then legislation changes, and it's all had a severe impact on both the rollout of retrofit, but also the security of any business that's trying to function within it. And it's a really difficult balance, in my opinion. So you've got to be really structured, because past 2035 is a structured and quite often standardized process, but you've just got to be flexible enough to adapt to those changes that, you know, that we've seen recent changes in past 2035. There will be more, and it's one of the biggest challenges, I suppose. You know, we're all welcome of the post-pandemic support into the industry with SHDF and LAD and HUG and all of that good stuff. And it's hopefully going to start providing a steady commercial plan to deliver successful retrofit. And this, in turn, has therefore provided opportunity. Now, I don't think there is a right or wrong way to approach the opportunity. We've approached it in a certain way. Some people want that security, I suppose, of full-time employment with an experienced employer, and, you know, watching the Warmworks and Improvisi presentations, we can only but dream that we're going to be in that position in some point in the future. Others prefer the self-employment model, be that in a small team or singularly individually, and that in itself can be vastly rewarding and successful as well. So we did take a different route. We offer full-time positions of employed positions, but we also offer positions for external subcontractors, shall we say, to assist us, as volumes definitely do go on a roller coaster. That holy grail of trying to find the steady consistency is, I suppose, another big challenge for a startup business. But we appreciate that, you know, people do want to set up their own life in their own way, and I think that rings true with the previous two presentations as well. There's a bit more on the team on the next slide, just to give you a background as to who we have. We have been successful, if that's the right word, to date. So we started as a true startup, loads of challenges which we'll come on to, but we have some really good, strong new, but strong relationships with lots of local authorities and social housing providers. We do go with we lead with a technical slant to past 2035. We're not currently involved in eco projects. We're focused solely on SHDF and previously and now LAD funding. But we are very grateful to those customers who've shown the support for a newbie on the market. But with that, if we fail to deliver as an SME and a startup SME, if we fail to deliver, the impact is far, far greater than from a business that's been in and around the market for 5-6 years and has got that depth of experience. So we take lots of deep breaths along the way. We're currently doing quite a lot of SHDF 2.1 bid support as well, which is really quite interesting, just to dig into people's wider stock. We're hopeful that that's going to really push the industry forward as well. So I suppose finally, just on this bit, you know, we've all got massive amounts of determination and positivity. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this industry. But ultimately, we can, if we try hard enough, enjoy the ride. Next slide, please. So as I touched on before, the management team, lots of different varied backgrounds within there. There are 3 out of the 4 heavily focused in retrofit, and you know, decades of combined experience. All our coordinators are fully employed and in-house. That was a key part of our strategy to do that. They all come from very backgrounds. We have corporate project managers, we have previously social housing senior managers who've looked after assets. So that's a really interesting viewpoint when we're looking at stock. And we've got where I think it was originally hoped to do was to bring that kind of different and more maybe technically led skill set into retrofit. So we wanted to try and support that ideal. And we have master's level architectural graduates, and getting that kind of skill set into retrofit is a challenge in itself for them. And so we try and support them as much as we can. We've got an assessment team, some in-house. We've got in-house air tightness testing engineers, but we also do rely heavily on the external support that we get from our retrofit assessors, who are seasoned EAs, as it says, degree level building surveys as well, who've seen retrofit as an opportunity, and all our assessors are multi-certified across different platforms, and also have lots of different skill sets so far as commercial and other things as well. So we do work as a team. I think lastly on this, I mentioned before mentoring. We have Carl is a key part of our delivery, and I think we noticed early on that there is, and I think it was mentioned before, that there's from completing the retrofit coordinator course to practicing as a coordinator, there is a gap. And what we wanted to do was try and fill that gap in-house. So Carl spends a lot of his time providing that mentoring, training. We have set training sessions, you know, can be multiple times a week, but always minimum twice weekly, where the coordinators can share some of their experiences and kind of pester him for technical advice, really. But Carl's a great addition to the team. Next slide, please, Emma. Even small businesses, I think, do need core values. You know, we wanted to set this out from the start, really. I won't dig in too much into this. You know, there are some similarities to others that we've seen as well, but it's the right thing to do. We asked our team members to give their thoughts and feedback on this, and we landed on these. If you take the 4 words in green, it spells pure, but I didn't think I'd put that on there because it looks a bit cheesy, but it is right. And they're our core values, and we work very closely to make sure that we deliver on our values. So next slide, please, Emily. So challenges, a bit wordy this one, but I wanted to kind of look at what some of the challenges are. It's not all of them. When I say funding, this isn't funding in from Bays or Eco or anything like that. This is funding to start a business, and that is one of the most difficult parts of what we've started with, really. And you know, we didn't start with a lot of money by any stretch. Lots of hard work, lots of head down and graft, and some of that, I think, is born out of the fact that investment into a startup in this industry is particularly challenging because of that that boom and bust, shall we call it, the low confidence that investors might have or did have in the sector, where I do think that in green, which is the positive bit, if we continue to grow and we all work together, then there are and there will be investment opportunities for SMEs and startups, because this industry is growing, it's growing at a pace. I suppose my biggest concern around that is that the pace is so fast that we all have to kind of do this together and deliver on the promises that we've made as past 2035 professionals, and make sure that the funding isn't taken away ultimately, which is my biggest fear. But the client base that we have, you know, it is difficult. I think I saw something in the chat before about, you know, the opportunities for small businesses to break into local authority delivery mechanisms. And it is difficult. You get knocked back far more than you get accepted. You know, we do enter lots and lots of different tender exercises. We're not successful in lots of them because I think some of our size goes against us, and that's just something that we have to kind of take on the chin, learn from it, and improve. The client base that we have obviously is all local authority and social housing providers. So the challenge within that has been some of the knowledge of the stock, because of the transfer sometimes of stock from previous local authority to social housing. So it can create challenges when you get varied SAT bands pre, post, whether you've got band D requirements, all of those things. So there is a challenge there. It's about kind of finding your way through the mud. But in all, I'm, you know, myself, and it is my sole opinion that I think that the management of the funding through local authority has been the right move. You know, that there are structures in place there for SMEs. Cash flow, which we'll come on to shortly, is key. So knowing that you can submit an invoice, and as long as it all tidies up, then you know that you've got, you know, 99.9% of the time you're going to get paid on time, and this is a good thing. Legal and professional. Insurances, having just been through it for the second time, is still a problem, in my opinion. There isn't enough option out there, so it is quite targeted towards, you know, a few brokers or insurance companies, and there's still not the full understanding of what we deliver, and I think that's part of it. So, you know, a little bit of work from above to help the insurance industry understand what it is that we do, and hopefully bring more products to the market would be certainly welcomed. And lastly, I suppose on there, we've seen a few contracts released where you do need a higher level of professional indemnity, which again is another part of the challenge with insurance companies. To get 5 million PI cover is quite difficult. It can be done, but it is also expensive. So again, another challenge. Next slide, please. So recruitment, and I suppose this is a big reason of why I'm speaking today. We're always, by the way, always open to having conversations with, you know, people who feel they want to speak to us about what we do. We're a very open business. We're more than happy to speak. We're always on the lookout for, you know, great retrofit professionals, and I would welcome that opportunity to speak. So hopefully, if my details can be shared at the by the Academy after this summit, then yeah, get in touch. So I suppose we look at the process of our recruitment goes with the right person first. Experience is great, and we welcome that. If they've got experience, qualification, and they're the right people, it's a win-win all round. But we also don't want to kind of close that opportunity off from people who aren't experienced and qualified. So we do and have you know, real world experience of taking people on and helping them through the training. It does also provide a benefit that they can kind of come into the fold and we can look after them, and it's not in any way brainwash them, but bring that kind of ethos into what we are trying to do, and it starts from that earlier stage. So we've seen that with our coordinators especially, have all come in and we've mentored them through. Finances, again, as I mentioned, cash flow it is and has to be spoken about as an SME. It's one of those things. You've just got to be really careful. The ups and downs of, a lot of what we do, there is a huge amount that we do, during and post works as well, of course there is, but a lot of the important bits, the upfront bits come way before the rest of the project. So understanding how your cash flow works from that upfront income to then making that work all the way through what could be a 9-12 month project is a challenge, but we've looked at that, we've been careful with it, and we've got some good strong people within the business assisting us with that. The rates that we've set has been another one of those things. I don't want to get into whose rates are what and who charges, what rate for the services that people provide. But it is one of those difficult things to try and position yourself right, whilst making what we all have to be aware of, which is a small amount of profit if possible, and making sure you don't price yourself out. So it's just it's another challenge. But one that will become clear and will work itself through as the industry settles a little bit. And that includes the income expectation of both external and internal employees. We like to have feedback from our external partners and our in-house team, make sure that everyone's happy ultimately. And lastly, suppose in the challenges section, there's lots of different accreditation software platforms out there, and how we use this past 2035 process and where we use it. We are predominantly with Elmhurst. We always have been. We know that there's lots of others out there, and they all do a great job. I think if we can get a bit more customizable and branded software out of that would be really useful. One of the other areas that I've seen is that as we want to expand the skill set of our team, we could just do with a few more places on a few more of those key courses. It's always full. It can take up to 3 months to get onto the level 3 in energy efficiency measures and traditional buildings, and that can hinder. So that's something that I'd like to see. And I'm not going to go into it, but the lodgement process is long and varied. It's a long and winding road, but that will no doubt, as we all get comfortable, improve. So next slide, please.
Matt, I'm going to need to move you along.
Good. All right. Move on from this next one, then, Emily. Last slide. You'll be pleased to hear. Okay. So, lastly, it kind of rolls with the core focus. I've kind of dovetailed it all in, and we do have a core of what we're trying to do. We're independently, looking at how we bring the best possible assessment, coordination, evaluation services. It's all about the resident. That's where we are. We support our client, we protect our client at times, but ultimately it's that end user that is our core. And to do that, we've got to give exceptional customer service, honesty, integrity, all of those things that are pretty standard but important to say. So yeah, that's me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks,
appreciate
Matt.
it.
That's great. There's a virtual round of applause going on all over the country. Thanks very much. I encourage any questions in the chat. There's a couple I'm coming on to in a minute, but I just wondered over the last year and a bit what you think as the entrepreneur that you may or may not be. What's your biggest lesson been in setting up a retrofit business?
Biggest lesson.
Biggest learning.
Question,
yeah.
I think positivity outweighing risk, I think, is probably one of the things. It is a risky thing to do. You can have blind positivity, so you've got to be prepared to take a few knocks along the way. We were new. It is new. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to roll out a red carpet. I think we deliver a good job. But there are lots of good people out there. I think one of the learnings for me is that, in my time over the last few years, really, and the last decade or so, there's often been a kind of, right, we want to, we're going to do this. This is us doing this, and there's no room for partnerships, I suppose. And I think that's something that I've always tried to promote. But I think now we're at a stage where I think we can learn from that. We can work together. The industry is bigger than the parts within it. We all know that demand is outstripping capacity, so we do need to work together. There's lots of opportunity out there, you know, and that's another reason why I'm really happy to speak to people. You know, we've got to work together on this. We can deliver the whole thing or single things. You know, we have different contracts, and we can work with people like that, and people work with us like that. So I suppose trying to bring an element of partnership to it, I think, will probably be my key learning.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you. Nick Owens has asked what your geographic coverage is.
We've not dipped into Scotland yet, but we're right up on Hadrian's Wall. We're starting to. We've got our first small foray into Wales. We have ongoing projects: Lincolnshire, Midlands, Northwest, Northeast, London. So we're not pinning ourselves into a geographical area. However, we are based in the northwest of England. That's been an easy fit for us as we start up. So, you know, I'd say 80% of our work is currently taking place in and around the northwest and over into Nottinghamshire and that way. So.
Okay, great, thanks. There's a couple of hands up. I think Ian Naismith was first. Ian, do you want to ask your question?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right, thanks. On the slide you had for the accreditations, it was quite interesting to read them where you were saying the software and particularly the lodgement process is long-winded. Well, I assume you mean that was with Trustmark.
Yeah, I think there's.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you. I think I think we've got to a position where I think it is kind of working. It's just a bit clunky. I think, you know, for if we look at trying to you know, submit multiple measures in a month and lodge those multiple properties in a month, you know, just you know, that recent kind of, you know, sit up and look at this, the prepayment before you get paid by a client is one of the things that I think we could do with looking at, because that would improve for an SME or an individual coordinator. You know, that is a key part of it. You know, it's a big expense going out, and I think some of the logistics around lodgement, it's quite a lengthy time for a coordinator to be doing that. I just find we could just probably speed it up a little in the future.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Mark, because I've been working lads and that, and you can be anything from 40 minutes to an hour per property.
Yeah.
They're just, you know, putting it on, so it's quite a bit. And as I understand it, Trustmark are not interested in setting up APIs like they did for Eco4, which is up and running this week. So. Yeah. It's very frustrating indeed.
Yeah. Well, we need to, if we're going to do more scale and more quality, Ian, we need that to improve, don't we? Thank you so much for that question. Gerald, you have your hand up. Gerald Charles.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Gerald.
Hi. I think this might be aimed at Peter Daly and maybe David, you might be able to answer. So I'm based in Wales. I've done the coordinator course and the level 3 traditional, and I have found that because ORP is setting the way in which we move, the surveyors are only really using the whole home survey based on the Zero retrofit. It's kind of been frustrating. The only benefit I've had from the qualifications is that, first of all, I have the knowledge to be able to assist where there's lacking, but where I'm finding it frustrating is that we're still using traditional surveyors who will do a job, i.e. throw EWI on, and then walk away. And when you ask them, why haven't you done ventilation, they sort of shrug their shoulders and say, not my problem. So it's one of the things we're dealing with in Wales specifically. I found that the retrofit has been not a waste of time, it just hasn't caught up yet. And it's only recently, as in November, that there's actually funding available for it. But that brings me to the second point, which is more aimed at Peter. With Scotland moving towards passive house, how is this going to affect the training that we've done, will there be some sort of add-on to help us meet that standard? Because there's a potential, a very strong potential, that Wales will follow suit. Is that going to influence the Retrofit Academy?
You're talking about the NFIT standard in retrofit.
That's correct. Yes, that's right. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that. I'd be amazed if there was a move towards that standard anywhere. That is way beyond the general capability of the industry at the moment.
You don't think that's a likelihood?
I really don't know. If anyone else sees that differently, I'd be keen to hear about it, but I'm not aware of that at all.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, there'll be certain clients, certain individual authorities who go down that route, as there are a new build, but I'm not. I don't think that the government funding and standards are heading in that direction. Matt, thanks. I haven't given you quite as much time for questions as others, but I'm very keen to bring our final speaker in, Becky, who's waited very patiently. Rebecca Lane is going to talk to us about a business idea that is full of venture capital and entrepreneurialism. I think's got an awful lot going for it. Becky, you're going to tell us all about Ferb now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, David. A little bit about me, where I've come from and why I've decided to tackle this market. I've come from working with SMEs and established utilities on trying to create really amazing customer propositions and customer value propositions. And that can be for EVs, heat, or low carbon buildings. And that's where I've kind of specialised over time. In my last role, I was at Westminster's Combined Authority leading on the place-based retrofit schemes. So I've seen what's happening in terms of the customer journey, recruiting the customers into the schemes, how they're being served, and also a bit of a view on what's happening in terms of the coordination and the installation as well. And next slide, Emily. And this is kind of why I've moved to really push onto this and the able to pay market. All the funding that's currently available, so you've got Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund 1 and 2 is just being announced at the moment for the bids, for those of you not familiar with those acronyms. And then we've got the Sustainable Warmth Competition, and then the LAD and the HUG programme, which is aimed at that 9.5 million. And then we've got the Able to Pay. Eco4 also covers those two on the left-hand side as well. Yeah, the Able to Pay market, which is not currently provided for at all. If it is, there's small amounts of pockets of work in this space, and it's a tremendous opportunity, particularly at the moment with the cost of living crisis and the cost of energy. It's not really where we want to be, but it really makes the case for people to move into this space very clear, to reduce their energy bills. And also those nascent people at the moment who are looking to reduce their carbon emissions. We've done a lot of work in this space to understand which customers want to go now. And there's a lot of people who are going to the Trustmark page, trying to find retrofit coordinators who are kind of vaguely aware of the process. They can't find them. They're trying to go to architects to ask how we can retrofit our houses. Again, not finding the right skill sets there as well. So there is a market here that is growing very slowly. And although there's funding in those places for those two markets, it's not going to retrofit all those millions of homes that are on the slide there. And we need an approach which is scalable and also providing immediate opportunities to retrofit assessors and coordinators like you guys on the call. So you have ways to practice your skills and have immediate routes to market to grow your own businesses. So what are we doing at Ferb now that's a bit different? And Emily, if you could go to the next slide, please. I mean, these are just some of the words that are in PAS 2035 that are available in the medium-term plan that are included and what is given to customers within the programmes. And most people don't know most of these words, and it's a language that we shouldn't be using with customers, particularly the Able to Pay market. There's obviously different segments within there. Some people are super tech focused and really want to get into this, but there's the majority of the market that know that there's something wrong with the home, know that they can do something, but they're not sure. And probably what they know about more than anything is loft insulation and cavity wall insulation from previous eco programs, and not a great deal. So the questions there about making sure ventilation is included in there, they don't know why it's necessary, but it certainly is. And what we're trying to do is bridge that gap so we can bring PAS 2035 to the Able to Pay market and ultimately drive up the quality that people are receiving in their homes. If I go to the next slide, Emily. And just, I mean, people are probably aware of the kind of things that people are saying or the concerns with the Able to Pay market. But this is coming from people who want retrofit assessments now. They want retrofit plans so they know what they can do. And this is the sort of feedback of the key buckets. Finding people they can trust, the installers, obviously that's not what we're talking about today. Figuring out where on earth to start, where the best place to have their money. Obviously we know what's going on at the moment with mortgages. Who knows what's happening with the economy? There might be another policy U-turn for our budget as well at any time. But some people have cash and they know that they can do long-term energy bill reduction for their home by investing, but it's just not knowing where to start. And the final one, the word retrofit, nobody's searching for it on Google. And if you start trying to talk to people about retrofit in that process, it's going to switch people off. So everything that we're focusing on is that front end of trying to firstly acquire the customers, be the places where they are, talk to them in a language that they understand. Most important for that as well, I think I saw somewhere in the chat that the able to pay market is willing to take more risks than really the PAS 2035 standard says, which is right. But I think if we start to explain to people what the alternative opportunity is and provide them with the service which can deliver that, the other parts of it, then they'll take it up because they can see the benefits. And that's certainly what's coming through with our offer at the moment. Emily, if you could go to the next slide. And this, what is our offer? From the outset, it looks quite simple. So get a whole house plan, and that will be presented back to you in a couple of packages. So behind the scenes, what is produced is the medium-term plan. So fabric first ventilate, going on to energy generation, and then low carbon heating. But how it gets presented back to people is dependent on their budget and their disruption availability. So we're not scaring people off by suggesting it's a 40 grand project up at the front. Within those packages as well, there are stages. If you've only got a certain budget or you're only able to raise a certain amount of finance at the moment, that's what we will arrange for you. And we're also looking not only for assessors and coordinators at that front end to come up with plans, we're looking for people to help manage those projects as well to make sure what is installed is good quality. That person will be on site to help be on the customer side to make sure the spec is delivered, but also on the side of helping installers to mentor the quality of that work. So if you're interested in moving forward to on-site work as well, that is definitely where we're moving forward. We're not just sitting at the plan stage. Once that's done, we're not leaving people alone. We're providing the ongoing support. So in PAS 2035, the evaluation, there's a sign-off point, but going forward as well, we provide a package of care for the customers. Probably the closest comparison is something like home care. So we will provide annual inspection of the work. We'll also monitor the energy savings. So for example, if at the front we're saying that there's going to be 500 kilowatt hours saved and you're only seeing 50, that's a flag which triggers an inspection for the household, and we'll see what's going on there, whether it's change in occupancy or the quality of the work that's being delivered. Ultimately, we just want to make it as easy as possible for people, particularly the able to pay market, to get going with their project. Obviously, you can understand there's probably going to be a drop-off point, but there is certainly a market for people who want to get going and do not want to have to deal with the faff of bringing different installers together, managing different trades. They really just want to have the work completed. On to the next slide, please. So what does this mean for you guys on the call? We are scaling up quite quickly. We have various different routes to market, B2B to market, direct to consumer, and also going through B2B2C routes to market as well. What the limiting factor is the number of retrofit assessors and coordinators, how quickly we can recruit you guys and provide immediate opportunities for you to reach those homeowners. So I'll come on to a second in that. And also the opportunity to move forward to able to pay retrofit projects. We're not talking about single measures. There'll be some that will be doing smaller packages of budget, so particularly the budget package, where you can imagine that might just be smaller scale ventilation, installing extraction ventilation when that isn't there, or moving on to larger projects, which could include wall installation as well. So what I want to do today is demonstrate what we're looking to do and are currently doing with the able to pay market. And to the final slide, Emily, invite you guys to sign up. And I was a bit click happy when I sent this over to Emily earlier. There is a typo there, it's surveyors. I'll pop it in the chat in a second. But we want to hear about when you're interested to work in this space. We're looking for assessors, coordinators. We're already working with some partners as well that are doing the retrofit design, but if that's also your specialism as well, we're looking for you. So please get in touch.
Okay, don't forget to put that extra E in surveyors. Thank you. There's a link in the chat just come through now. Becky, thank you very much. And short and to the point, I thought. Very clear and exciting. You know, this able to pay market gets ignored by the retrofit industry by and large. It's always a bit further down the line. It's a bit like non-domestic. We'll get to it in the end, and we never seem to. And we've got to, because Becky's first slide demonstrated there that it's what is it? Oh, my maths isn't very good. 2/3 of the houses, there or thereabouts. So very welcome initiative and a great opportunity to work in a proper startup and be part of it. Now, there are some questions for you, Becky, here. Nick Owens, he's been prolific with your questions today, Nick, which you're very welcome to do. He's asking, I suppose this is a question about how retrofit coordinators can make this work for themselves as well as for you. So the question is, how can retrofit coordinators calculate energy savings per measure and overall, and include this in the plan along with 2 site visits for £300 plus VAT?
Yes, and I think this is a question of what's the proposition to the customer versus what you're currently doing for the eco projects and the lads projects where you're getting paid. So what you've seen in the cost there is the cost to the customer, not what you're being paid, because that's a question of the business model and making sure that we have people coming up front. So that's the customer cost, not what we're looking to pay you.
So it's possible you may pay the coordinator more than that.
Exactly.
But okay, interesting, very interesting. And then Marcus makes a point later in the chat that the typical fee in the eco is around £150. Now, I was going to ask Matt a question. I'm going to put it to you and perhaps ask Matt to come in on it as well. The world of the eco and the world of servicing homeowners seem to me to be poles apart. In terms of the customer journey and the way in which the PAS is being interpreted and applied. So, as Marcus Dingwall said there, the typical fee in eco for providing, I assume that's coordinator services, Marcus, would be about £150. And then on the other hand, we got people saying, well, we can't deliver that service for £300. And of course, we're saying, well, the real cost of it is higher than that. That's it's a cost of sale further down the line. So how do we square that? Is that just the way it needs to be? And eco will always be a bit different and a bit more, straightforward, or do they need to come together a bit?
Is that to Matt?
It could be to either of you, whoever wants to come in first.
Well, from my side of things, I think this is, I did briefly mention it, is around the rates that we're trying to charge. We're steering away from what has been termed as a race to the bottom with pricing, but we have to be realistic that there was a kind of a muted rate out in the very start, and those things are changing, and they will change as people become more efficient ultimately at the work that we're doing, because at the minute there are lots of kind of questions and reviews and constant to and fro with customers. I think that's been one of the things we've found so surprising. It's always welcome, but it can take time, and time in this industry is ultimately costing. So I think we're keeping a keen eye on it. We're famously, I think, potentially might not be the cheapest out there, but I think we deliver in a slightly different way.
Sure.
But I think it will equalize, I hope, when there is a kind of a more standard rate, and we also don't kind of pigeonhole ourselves in A, B, or C. We'll just look at the project as it is, and the complexity of that project. If you're looking at a whole house, a full whole house, then that's a completely different mindset and rate to how you might look at a 1 measure or 2 measure eco project. So that's my thought on it.
Okay, Becky, and I wondered, in your gearing up of this business, are you looking at how you speed up excellence, how you make it efficient, and so that we can start to bring those sorts of costs down without punishing the retrofit in the process?
So on the side of getting learnings from projects, particularly for the able to pay, I mean, this is one company, and I would think there should be hundreds of these really to service the demand if we're just looking at the 14 million for able to pay. So the plan is to share insight back with assurance organisations and also organisations such as the Retrofit Academy to kind of feedback what's going on the ground to help with that. To come back and like how to assure excellence, I mean, this comes back to how this model, which I mean, at its core is a platform and a marketplace where customers feedback to the quality of service that they're receiving. And we're also actively monitoring during the evaluation process of the installations as well, what the quality of the work is done. So we are purposefully selecting people who are performing well based on customer feedback and also evaluation feedback to keep coming back and doing the work.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Thank you very much. Alex Woodcraft. Hello, Alex. I haven't seen you for ages. It's more of a comment this than a question, but I'm going to read it out anyway. He says he seems the accreditation schemes are marginalizing the role of a coordinator in someone who works for an installer and signs off their work. And Gordon echoes that. So that's clearly not the kind of retrofit coordination that we've been talking about today. Certainly not with Becky and Matt. And I don't believe, Peter, are you still there from Warmworks? Peter Daly, if you could unmute yourself if you're still with us. But he may be talking to someone, but I'd wager that that's not the kind of retrofit coordination service that Peter's looking for either. And yet it's all called retrofit coordination, isn't it? Which strikes me as problematic.
Because I think the role of the retrofit coordinator is essential for really unlocking action in the able to pay market. One of the bits of feedback I showed there was people not finding trusted installers. They also can't find a source of truth as well to what to do and where to go to start. And the retrofit coordinator, the role in the service we're providing, I mean, we're not a salesperson, but a trusted intermediary to give the information when people are in their home. Because in reality, the kind of support that we'll be providing will be through a site, will be on the phone, will be over email. And when the coordinator goes into people's homes, you are that trusted person that they'll come back to again to do their project. So it's not a compliance role, particularly in what we're providing. It's that trusted person to take on the struggle of understanding where to start and bringing it together so they can actually deliver their project.
Okay. So
I muted myself. My
hi, Peter.
Playing up. Sorry. Right. Our retrofit coordinators basically are just kind of independent, going out assessing the property and the client as a fully independent kind of arbiter between us and them, really. So to an extent, because we're tending to manage public funding, there's the rules and the conditions around what we can do and what we're trying to. So the difference between, I think, the able to pay and the kind of funded market is, I think you've got more choice as the able to pay. In the funded market, I think we're being asked to assess the property and the use of the property, and then send it off for coordination to look for the best package of measures within the funding opportunity. So to an extent, the resident, the client, the homeowner is less in control to an extent than you would be as able to pay. So, and I don't mean it like this, but to an extent, it's being done to somebody rather than done for them. And I don't mean it sound as bland as that, but I think that is a slight difference.
Okay, that's fine. I think that the point, Peter, about whether the kind of retrofit coordination that you're looking for as a business is this sort of more tick box, perhaps not performing that intermediary role. I think you've answered that clearly. You are looking for them to be that intermediary, but do you feel that it, it's right that we can call one person a retrofit coordinator who's doing it that should we sort of light touch way, and another who is really doing the job thoroughly? It seems problematic to me.
I understood the whole role of the retrofit coordinator to be that thorough, independent advisor that goes.
You've understood it correctly then.
Yeah, well, I think there's a difference between that and like in my early days of energy efficiency, where an assessor went and just assessed for a specific outcome or a couple of specific outcomes, and kind of had a very light touch. And if we're going to go for retrofit assessors, then there almost ought to be some obligation to be doing it in that thorough, organized fashion for me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, we just had a question come through from James Wilson for Becky. Forgive me, I'm going to read this out loud without having read it before. So he says, what are the risks of able to pay clients backing out of programs of work once the assessment has been done and their positional circumstances change after receiving an improvement option appraisal? And what are your protections against operating at a loss?
So I guess you're hinting there, James, at what I said earlier in terms of what the customer pays is not what you get paid. So it's fair to say our business model isn't just predicated on the customer moving to projects. I can anticipate that a lot of people receive their plan and they might feel that they're ready to DIY or find their own installers. So that is, it's not operating at a loss because that's not how our business model works. But I can't give away too much because that says a little bit behind the scenes what we're working on. But essentially we anticipate that drop off within the funnel. But our hope is, and the evidence is showing that by demonstrating the ongoing support that we provide people, providing the installers, a project manager, the ongoing support once the work is done. We're also working on an insurance product as well, so we can guarantee the work going forward. That is a really attractive proposition, which means people feel far more confident moving forward.
Fantastic, thank you. Now, just one more question. If anyone wants to ask a final one, put a hand up, please, and I'll try and come to you. But one final question from me is, to what extent do you think that the image of our industry is a barrier to people from outside of it coming into it?
For me, I think that has been part of the not the problem, but it is something that we need to be aware of. I think attracting people who aren't used to retrofit into retrofit and giving them that confidence that it can be a successful career, more than anything else, not just dipping the toe in and then maybe leaving and going on to something different. I think it has been, it has been reasonably volatile, I think, for want of a better word, over time. So I think that has had an impact on it now. However, I was going to say before, retrofit coordination in particular, it's a professional service. It's got a hefty qualification behind it, and all the coordinators I know are doing it really, really well. And I think we need to be strong in that it is a professional service and it should be marketed that way.
Yeah, I think that message has come through very loud and clear from all four presenters today, who are all creating jobs in good companies with doing things the right sort of way. So sort of we can't control what happens in other parts of the market, but it is fabulous to see brilliant initiatives in what you might say heading towards a race to the top, and we're not all just racing to the bottom. So I think that brings us to a natural end. I'd like to thank all of our contributors and all of you for attending. I hope you feel it's been a worthwhile event. It's the first time we've gone down this route, so we will do a bit of a survey with you to find out what you did think and how we could do things better. So please keep an eye on that, and it would really help us if you would. In the meantime, I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you again. We've got one more summit coming up before the end of the year. Don't know what it's about yet. And also our PAS Club. Emily, when is the next one?
Every last Friday of the month there, David.
Last Friday of the month. I should drill that into my head, shouldn't I? So hope to see some more of you there, if not before. Thanks ever so much for joining me. Thank you.